The order. The man walked slowly through the alien market. Strange lights flickered above him, glowing blue and red in the night sky. The smell of smoke and burning metal filled the air. Around him, traders shouted loudly, trying to sell strange objects, rare weapons, and sometimes living beings. His name was Marcus. He had traveled across many planets, but he had never felt so heavy in his heart. Tonight, he had been given an order. An order he wished he could refuse. The order was simple but cruel. Deliver a poor alien widow and her young daughter to the market and sell them. The person who gave this task was dangerous. Marcus owed him a debt. If he refused, his own life could be taken. But as he walked, his mind kept asking one question. How can a man sell a mother and her child like objects? He reached the dark corner of the market where cages stood. Some cages were empty. Others held prisoners from different worlds. Their eyes were hopeless, their bodies weak. Guards with long weapons watched carefully, making sure no one escaped. And then Marcus saw them. The widow was sitting on the ground, her hands tied, her back against the cold metal bars. Her skin was pale silver, her hair long and tangled. But it was her eyes that caught Marcus's heart. They were filled with sadness, the sadness of someone who had lost everything. Beside her sat a little girl, no more than 7 years old. She held her mother's hand tightly. Her face was thin, her clothes torn, but her eyes still carried a small spark of life. When she saw Marcus, she quickly hid behind her mother, afraid. Marcus stopped. For a moment, the noise of the market faded away. He looked at them and his chest felt tight. They were not criminals. They were not enemies. They were just a mother and daughter who had suffered too much already. One of the guards pushed Marcus forward. Here they are, the guard said in a rough voice. You know your job. Sell them before sunrise. The master will be waiting for his share. Marcus nodded slowly, but his mind was not calm. His hands shook as he took the rope tied to the widow's wrists. She looked at him, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Please, protect her, she said, nodding toward her daughter. Her words cut deep into Marcus's heart. He tried to stay strong, but inside a storm began to rise. He was not a saint, not a hero. He had done many wrong things in his life. But this felt too far. As he led them through the crowded market, people stared. Some laughed, some whispered, others pointed. The little girl kept close to her mother, her small hands trembling. Marcus heard one of the traders call out, "A widow and a child? Weak. No one will pay much." Another laughed. "Maybe someone will buy them as servants. Or worse." Marcus felt his stomach twist in anger. He wanted to shout at them, to strike them down, but he kept walking. His mind raced. If I sell them, I will live. If I don't, I may die. The widow spoke again, her voice weak but full of dignity. If you must sell me, then do it. But not her. Please, not my daughter. Marcus stopped walking. His breath was heavy. The little girl looked up at him with wide eyes. For a moment he saw not an alien child, but a child who could have been his own, if life had been different. The noise of the market returned louder than ever. The guards were watching. The traders were waiting. His debt was real. His choice was clear, or so it seemed, but Marcus's heart was no longer willing. He thought about all the years he had survived, all the battles he had fought. He thought about the blood he had seen, the people he had betrayed. And then he thought about what kind of man he would be if he went through with this order. Would he forever be the man who sold a mother and her child into suffering? Or could he, for once, choose a different path? The widow squeezed her daughter's hand. The girl whispered, her voice trembling, "Are you going to hurt us?" Marcus looked down at her. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Instead, his heart made the answer for him. He could not do it. Not this time. Marcus pulled the rope tighter, pretending to the guards that he was doing his job. But in his mind, he was already planning. He would not sell them. He would find a way to protect them, even if it cost him his own life. The market lights flickered again. The sound of alien drums echoed in the distance. Somewhere a bell rang, signaling the closing of one section of trade. Marcus's time was running out. The master would soon ask for his share. The widow looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. The girl held her breath, waiting for his decision. And in that moment, Marcus knew. The order he had been given would not be completed. But if he broke it, the whole galaxy might turn against him. The choice Marcus's boots echoed on the stone floor as he led the widow and her daughter deeper into the alien market. The crowd thinned, and the glow of the trading stalls grew dimmer. The guards watched from behind, their sharp eyes never leaving him. He kept his head low, but inside his heart was burning. The widow's words, "Please protect her," kept repeating in his mind. Every time he looked at the girl's small hands gripping her mother's arm, guilt stabbed him like a knife. He had been ordered to sell them. He had been ordered to betray them. But something inside him was no longer listening to orders. The widow stumbled as they walked, her steps slow from exhaustion. Marcus reached out quickly, steadying her before she could fall. For a brief second her eyes met his. There was no anger in them, only quiet sadness. The little girl whispered, her voice trembling, "Mister, are we going to a new home?" Marcus froze. His throat tightened. How could he tell her the truth? That she was being treated like an object, a thing to be sold. He forced a smile that did not reach his eyes. "You'll be safe," he said softly. But his words tasted like lies. They turned into a narrow passageway where only a few traders lingered. This was where the poorest slaves were sold. Marcus's chest grew heavier. He could already see the buyers waiting. Their faces were greedy, their eyes hungry for profit or cruelty. The widow tightened her grip on her daughter. Her voice was low, meant only for Marcus. "If you must do this, take me. But please, let her go. Hide her. She is only a child." Marcus's steps slowed. His mind screamed at him to keep moving, to finish the job, to live. But his heart screamed louder. He remembered the years he had fought in wars, killing for commanders who never cared about him. He remembered the faces of innocents, caught in battles, people who begged for mercy. He had ignored them then. He had survived by turning his heart to stone. But now, looking at this child, he realized his stone heart was breaking. The guards shouted from behind, "Hurry up! Stop wasting time!" Marcus's hand clenched tightly around the rope. His breathing grew fast. He could almost hear the beating of his heart echoing in his ears. And then a thought came. Dangerous. Reckless. But it felt right. What if I don't sell them? The idea shocked him. It was madness. If he refused, the guards would kill him. The master he owed would hunt him to the ends of the galaxy. He would be marked as a traitor. But if he obeyed, the girl would lose everything. Her mother, her freedom, her childhood. The little girl looked up at him again. Her big eyes shone in the dim light, filled with both fear and a small spark of trust. "Are you really going to help us?" she whispered. That single question crushed the last wall inside. Marcus, he stopped walking. The guards frowned. "What are you doing? Keep moving." Marcus turned slowly, his face calm but his mind racing. He looked at the widow and her daughter. Then he looked at the guards. His voice was steady. "They are not for sale." The words hung in the air, like thunder. The guards blinked in shock. For a moment, the whole market seemed to fall silent. Then the anger came. "You fool," one of the guards roared, stepping forward with his weapon raised. "Do you want to die? The master will kill you for this." Marcus pulled the rope loose from the widow's wrists and tossed it to the ground. "Then let him try." The widow gasped. The girl clung to her leg. The guards charged. Marcus moved quickly, his instincts from years of fighting taking over. He struck the first guard in the chest, sending him crashing into a stall. The second swung his weapon, but Marcus grabbed the widow's hand and pulled her aside just in time. "Run!" Marcus shouted. The widow hesitated, but when she saw the fire in his eyes, she obeyed. Holding her daughter close, she ran into the shadows of the alley. Marcus faced the guards alone. His fists struck like iron, but he was only one man against many. Still, he fought, buying every second he could. The widow and her daughter ran through the narrow streets, their breaths fast, their hearts pounding. The little girl cried, "He's fighting for us." "Yes," the widow whispered, tears in her eyes. "But we must live, or his sacrifice will be for nothing." Behind them, Marcus's battle cries and the clash of weapons echoed. The market was alive with chaos now. Traders shouted, alarms rang. The hunters were on the move. Marcus finally broke free, his body bruised and bleeding, but his spirit unbroken. He sprinted into the dark alley where the widow and child had gone. The three of them met again in the shadows, their eyes locked. From above, the sound of ships filled the night. Searchlights cut across the streets. Soldiers were pouring in. Marcus's chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He knew now there was no turning back. He had made his choice. He would not sell them. He would protect them, even if the whole galaxy came to hunt him. The widow placed her hand on his arm. Her eyes, once full of despair, now glimmered with something else. Hope. The little girl whispered again, almost as if testing the words. Family? Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, family. But above them, the soldiers' voices grew louder. The searchlights were closing in, their time was running out. The escape. The night air was sharp and cold as Marcus pressed the widow and her daughter against the wall of the alley. The sound of boots and heavy weapons echoed behind them. Searchlights swept across the streets like angry eyes. They are close, the widow whispered, her voice trembling. Marcus nodded. He looked at the little girl. She was clutching her mother's hand, her eyes wide with fear but still glowing faintly in the dark. That glow unsettled him, but there was no time to think about it now. We move, Marcus said, his voice firm. Stay behind me. Don't stop. No matter what. They darted through the shadows, avoiding the bright lights above. Marcus's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. Every corner could hide danger, every sound could give them away. Behind them, the alien soldiers shouted, "Find them! The master wants the girl alive." Marcus's jaw tightened. Alive. But for what, he wondered. He pushed the thought away. Now was not the time for questions. Survival came first. They reached a broken section of the market wall. The bricks were cracked and a gap opened into the wild forest beyond the city. Marcus pushed them through first, then followed. The forest was alive with strange noises. Insects buzzed with metallic clicks. Small, glowing animals scurried across. The roots. The air smelled of wet earth and smoke. The widow looked around nervously. The forest is dangerous, many do not return. Marcus checked the shadows. It is better than the soldiers. He guided them deeper into the trees. Their footsteps sank into the soft ground. The girl stumbled once, but Marcus caught her before she fell. For a brief moment, her small hand rested in his, and something stirred inside him, a warmth he had not felt in years. But the peace did not last. The sound of engines roared above the forest. Bright beams of light cut through the trees. Ships hovered overhead, searching. Soldiers dropped into the forest with heavy thuds, their armor shining in the glow. They are here, the widow gasped. Marcus grabbed a thick branch from the ground, holding it like a weapon. His voice was steady. Stay behind me. The soldiers marched closer, their voices harsh. Hand over the girl, and we will let you live. Marcus stood tall. Not happening, the soldiers laughed. You think you can protect them? You are only one man. Marcus tightened his grip on the branch. One man is enough. The soldiers lunged. Marcus swung hard, knocking one to the ground. He grabbed the soldier's weapon and fired at another, the shot lighting up the trees. The widow pulled her daughter away from the chaos, hiding behind a large root. But more soldiers came. Too many. Marcus fought like a wild animal, his body moving on pure instinct. For every soldier that fell, two more appeared. His muscles ached, his breath burned, but he refused to fall. The widow cried out, "They will kill you!" Marcus shouted back, "Run!" Take her and run." The widow hesitated, torn between fear and faith. But before she could answer, something unexpected happened. The little girl stepped out from behind her mother. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, shining like twin stars. She raised her small hands, and for a moment the air itself seemed to tremble. A wave of light burst from her palms, slamming into the soldiers. They screamed as their weapons sparked and their armor cracked. Some were thrown to the ground, others fled into the trees. Silence followed. Only the sound of the forest remained. Marcus stared at the girl, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. What was that? The widow's face was pale, her lips pressed tight. She did not answer. Instead, she pulled her daughter close and whispered something in her ear. The girl leaned against her mother, her glow fading, her small body trembling with exhaustion. Marcus knew then that this child was no ordinary girl. She was something more, something powerful, and that power was why the master wanted her. Before he could speak again, the sound of more engines filled the sky. Ships were circling, closing in. Marcus turned to the widow. "We can't stay here. They'll send more." The widow nodded. Fear filled her eyes, but so did a strange hope. "Where can we go?" Marcus thought quickly. He knew of old tunnels beneath the forest, ruins left from a forgotten war. Few dared to enter them. They were dark, filled with danger, but danger was better than capture. "This way," he said, pointing to the deeper woods. "If we keep moving, we can reach the tunnels before dawn." The widow looked at him with doubt. "And if we don't?" Marcus's voice was low but firm. "Then I will fight until I can't." The girl tugged on his sleeve, her eyes half closed with exhaustion. "You won't leave us, right?" Marcus bent down, his eyes meeting hers. "No, never." They moved, again deeper into the forest. Behind them, the fires of the market glowed red in the distance. Ahead, the darkness of the unknown waited. Marcus felt the weight of the choice he had made pressing on his shoulders. He had broken the order. He had betrayed his master. Now the galaxy would hunt him. But as he looked at the widow and her daughter, walking beside him, he felt something else too. For the first time in years, he felt alive. Yet the shadows of the forest seemed to move with them. Strange eyes watched from the branches above. The air grew colder, heavier. Marcus tightened his grip on the stolen weapon. He knew this escape was only the beginning. The real danger was still ahead. The bond. The forest grew darker as night stretched longer. Strange glowing plants lit small patches of the ground, and the air carried the sound of distant roars. Marcus led the way, holding the stolen weapon tightly. Behind him, the widow held her daughter close, her silver hair catching bits of moonlight. They had escaped the soldiers for now, but Marcus knew it would not last. The master's men would keep searching, they always did. After hours of walking, the girl stumbled. Her small legs shook and she fell to her knees. Marcus stopped. He looked at her, sweat on her forehead, her breathing weak. He crouched down. "She can't walk anymore," he said softly. The widow's eyes filled with worry. She used her strength, the light. It drains her. Marcus studied the child for a moment, then without a word, lifted her into his arms. The girl leaned against his chest, her tiny hands gripping his shirt. She whispered, half asleep, "You're warm." Marcus felt his heart twist. It had been years since anyone had clung to him with such trust. He walked on, carrying her gently, while the widow followed. At last, they found a cave hidden between thick roots of an enormous tree. Marcus guided them inside. The walls glowed faintly with moss, enough to see but not enough to attract attention. "This will do for now," Marcus said. The widow nodded. She sat near the wall, pulling her daughter into her lap. Marcus placed the weapon beside him and sat across from them. For the first time since the night began, silence surrounded them. The widow stroked her daughter's hair, her voice soft. "Sleep, my little star." The girl closed her eyes quickly, exhaustion winning. Soon her breathing slowed. Marcus watched quietly. Something in his chest stirred again. Something dangerous. Something he had buried long ago. He had lived alone. For so many years, fighting, running, taking orders from men with power. Family was a word he had forgotten. But here in this cave, watching a mother protect her child, he felt the memory return. The widow looked up at him. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Her voice was low, but sharp with curiosity. "Why risk your life for us?" Marcus sighed. He leaned back against the stone wall. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because I was tired of being a tool, tired of doing what monsters tell me to do. When I saw her, when I saw both of you, I just couldn't." The widow's eyes softened, though sadness still lingered in them. "Many men have looked at us before. None have done what you did." Marcus said nothing. He stared at the girl, sleeping peacefully despite the danger outside. The widow's voice grew quiet. "She is special. That is why they want her." Marcus raised his eyes. "Special how?" The widow hesitated. Her lips trembled, as if speaking the truth was a burden, too heavy. Finally, she whispered, "She carries light inside her, a power older than most stars. Some want to use it, others want to destroy it, and some fear it." Marcus frowned. "And what about you? Do you fear it?" The widow shook her head. "She is my daughter. I fear only the ones who would harm her." Silence returned. The only sound was the gentle breathing of the child. Marcus leaned forward. His voice was steady. "Then I will protect her, both of you, no matter what." The widow's eyes glistened. She studied him as if searching his soul. Finally, she whispered, "Family." Marcus blinked. The word felt heavy, strange, yet warm. "Family," he repeated softly. For a moment, there was peace. But peace never lasted. Outside the cave, the forest shifted. Leaves rustled, though no wind blew. Strange, glowing eyes appeared in the darkness, dozens of them, moving closer. Marcus tensed. He grabbed the weapon, his muscles tightening. "We're not alone." The widow pulled her daughter closer, though the girl remained asleep. "What is it?" Marcus's eyes narrowed as the glowing shapes grew clearer. Tall, shadowy creatures stepped into the light of the moss. Their bodies were thin, their arms long, their mouths filled with rows of sharp teeth. Their movements were slow, but their numbers were many. "The forest hunters," the widow whispered. Fear filled her voice. "They come at night, they smell weakness." Marcus stood, raising the weapon. "Then they'll smell fire instead." The creatures hissed, their voices echoing like broken glass. They crept forward, step by step, surrounding the cave. Marcus glanced back at the widow and her daughter. The child stirred in her sleep, her eyes glowing faintly again, as if her body sensed the danger. Marcus clenched his jaw. "Stay behind me." The widow's eyes locked on his. "If they take us, they won't," Marcus cut her off. His voice was steel. The hunters hissed louder, their claws scraping against the stone. The cave filled with shadows, the glow of the moss trembling under their steps. Marcus steadied his breath. His hand tightened on the weapon. His heart pounded. But his mind was clear. He had chosen them. He had chosen family. And he would not let anything take them away. The first hunter leapt forward, teeth flashing. Marcus fired, the shot lighting the cave in blinding blue. The battle for their bond had begun. The battle. The cave shook with the sound of hissing. The forest hunters crept closer, their glowing eyes filling the dark. Their claws scratched against the stone, their sharp teeth gleaming like broken knives. Marcus stood at the mouth of the cave, weapon ready. His body ached from the fights earlier, but his spirit was stronger than ever. Behind him, the widow held her daughter close, whispering softly to keep her calm. The first hunter leapt forward with a scream. Marcus fired. The blue blast struck its chest, throwing the creature against the wall. It fell, twitching before going still. But more came. Dozens, Marcus fired again and again, the cave flashing with light each time. The hunters screamed, their bodies jerking back, but still they pushed forward. They moved like shadows, fast and hungry. One of them dodged his shot and lunged. Marcus swung the weapon like a club, smashing it across the creature's skull. Bone cracked. The hunter fell, but another was already on him, claws raked across his arm. Marcus grunted in pain but shoved the creature back. His blood dripped on the cave floor, but he did not stop. "Stay back," he shouted to the widow. She held her daughter tighter. Her silver eyes glistened in the dim glow of the moss. "You cannot fight them all." "I don't need to," Marcus growled. "I just need to hold them off," another hunter charged. Marcus fired into its chest, then kicked its body aside. His muscles burned, his breath came hard, but he refused to fall. Every second he fought, every moment he stood, gave the widow and child more time to live. The hunters hissed louder. They began to circle him, moving like a pack of wolves. Their glowing eyes fixed on him, their sharp teeth dripping with hunger. One attacked from the side. Marcus spun, blocking with the weapon, but another leapt from behind. Claws dug into his back. He roared in pain, slamming his elbow into the creature's face. It fell, screeching, but his shirt was torn and blood stained his skin. The widow cried out, "Marcus!" But Marcus did not stop. He fought with everything he had, his fists, his kicks, his weapon. Every move was desperate, but every strike carried the weight of his choice, the choice to protect them. And then, something changed. The little girl's eyes opened. She had been silent, weak from using her strange power earlier. But now, she looked at Marcus covered in blood, fighting like a beast, refusing to fall. Her small hands shook. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Don't hurt him," she cried. Her voice echoed, and with it came the light. Bright, blinding light burst from her tiny body, filling the cave like a newborn star. The hunters screamed, their shadows burning away. Some fell to the ground, their bodies shaking. Others turned and fled into the forest, hissing in fear. The light faded slowly. The cave grew dim again. Marcus lowered his weapon, breathing hard. His arms shook. Blood dripped from his wounds, but his eyes stayed fixed on the girl. She lay weak in her mother's arms, her glow gone, her chest rising and falling with slow breaths. The widow looked at Marcus, her face pale. "Now you see," she whispered. "Now you understand why they want her." Marcus leaned against the wall, his vision swimming. "Yes, and now I know why I can't let them have her." The widow's hands trembled as she held her daughter. "But at what cost? You cannot fight the galaxy." Marcus gave a tired smile. "Maybe not. But I can fight tonight. I can fight tomorrow. As long as I breathe, I can fight for her." The widow stared at him. Her eyes softened, a tear sliding down her cheek. She whispered one word. "Why?" Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. Memories flashed. His past battles, the people he had betrayed, the lives he had ruined. He had lived like a weapon, not a man. But now, in this cave, facing death and shadows, he finally felt alive. "Because you're not just strangers anymore," he said quietly. "You're my family." The widow's lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes shone with both sorrow and hope. She pressed her forehead against her daughter's and closed her eyes. The forest outside grew quiet. The hunters were gone, at least for now. But Marcus knew this peace would not last. The Master's soldiers were still searching. And now, after the girl's display of power, the light would draw even more enemies. Marcus wiped blood from his face and reloaded the weapon. His body screamed in pain, but his spirit burned with fire. The widow spoke softly. "You cannot carry this burden alone." Marcus looked at her, his eyes steady. "I don't plan to, not anymore." The girl stirred, whispering weakly. "Family." Marcus knelt beside her. He brushed a strand of hair from her face and gave her a tired but gentle smile. "Yes, family." The night grew colder, the forest whispering around them. Marcus sat at the cave entrance guarding them, his weapon in hand. He knew the battle was not over. It had only begun. But now, for the first time in years, he had something worth fighting for, and he would fight until his last breath. The revelation. The firelight flickered against the cave walls. Marcus sat near the entrance, his weapon across his lap, his eyes heavy but unblinking. Outside, the forest whispered with strange calls, but the hunters did not return. Behind him, the widow cared for her daughter. She tore strips from her own dress to wipe away the girl's sweat and covered her with a thin blanket. The child slept deeply, her face pale, her breath slow. Marcus turned his head. His arms were scratched and bleeding, but he ignored the pain. His attention was on the girl. "She saved us," he said quietly. The widow nodded without looking at him. "Yes, but every time she uses the light, it takes more from her." Marcus frowned. "Light? What is it exactly?" The widow's hand trembled as she brushed her daughter's hair. For a long time she did not speak. Marcus waited, his patience uncharacteristic. Finally she whispered, "It is not just light, it is life itself." Marcus shifted his voice low. "Explain." The widow lifted her eyes, silver glinting in the dim glow. Long ago, before the wars, before the markets, there were beings who carried the first light. It was said to be a gift from the stars themselves, a power that could heal worlds or destroy them. My people believed it was lost, but it was not. It was born again, in her. She looked down at her sleeping daughter with both pride and fear. Marcus's chest tightened. "That's why the master wants her." The widow nodded. "And why? Others will come. Whoever controls her will control the galaxy. Armies will kill for her. Empires will rise or fall because of her light." Marcus stared at the child. She looked so small, so fragile. It was hard to believe such a power could rest inside her tiny body. He clenched his fists. "She's just a little girl. She shouldn't have to carry that." "She doesn't choose it," the widow said softly. "It was given, and now, it is a curse." Marcus shook his head. "No, not a curse. Not while I'm here." The widow tilted her head. "Why do you care so much? You owe us nothing. You could leave now and no one would blame you." Marcus's eyes hardened. "Because I was given an order to sell you and instead I chose you. That means I don't walk away. Not now, not ever." The widow looked at him, studying his face as if searching for weakness. What she saw, however, was not weakness. It was determination carved deep into his soul. Her voice trembled. "Do you understand what you are saying? To protect her is to fight the galaxy itself." Marcus leaned back against the wall, his hand resting on his weapon. "Then let it come." Silence filled the cave. Only the forest's strange whispers broke it. The widow finally spoke again, her voice heavy with sorrow. "There is more. If she uses the light too often, it will burn her from inside. That is why I begged you not to sell her. Not only would she be enslaved, she would be broken." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Then we'll protect her. We'll keep her hidden." The widow shook her head. "You don't understand. They will never stop. The light has already revealed itself twice tonight. They will sense it. Even now, ships may be moving across the stars to find us." Marcus felt the weight of her words, pressing down on him. He thought of the battles he had fought, the wars he had survived. None of them felt as impossible as this. Protecting one child against the galaxy? It was madness. And yet, he looked at her face, peaceful, innocent. The face of a child who had trusted him without question. He remembered her whisper, "Family." Marcus closed his eyes, letting the word echo inside him. When he opened them, his decision was made. "Then, we stay on the run," he said firmly. "We move, we fight, we hide, whatever it takes. She is not their weapon. She is not their prize. She is our family." The widow's lips parted. For the first time, Marcus saw something new in her eyes. "Not just sorrow, but hope," she whispered. "You would die for her?" Marcus answered without hesitation. "Yes." The cave grew colder. A distant rumble rolled through the forest, shaking the ground. Marcus stood quickly, his instincts sharp. "What is it?" the widow asked. Marcus's eyes narrowed. In the distance, above the treetops, lights flickered, not stars, ships. "They've found us," Marcus said, his voice low. The widow clutched her daughter tighter, fear returned to her face. "We cannot fight them all." Marcus checked his weapon, his body weary but ready. "Maybe not, but we can fight long enough to escape." The girl stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching out. She whispered in her dream, "Don't leave us." Marcus's heart burned. He bent down, brushing her hand gently. "Never." The forest outside echoed with the sound of engines. Soldiers' voices carried through the night. The hunt had begun again. Marcus stood tall at the cave entrance, his silhouette framed by the faint glow of the moss. He was only one man. His body was wounded, his strength running thin. But in his heart, he carried something stronger than any weapon, the choice he had made. He had chosen them. He had chosen family. And no order, no master, no galaxy could take that away from him. The new family. The night sky burned with lights. Ships hovered above the forest, their search beams slicing through the trees. Engines roared like thunder. The ground shook as soldiers landed in heavy armor, their weapons gleaming. Marcus stood at the mouth of the cave, weapon in hand. His body was bruised, his arms cut, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, the widow clutched her daughter close. The girl stirred, her small body weak after using her strange power. "They've come," Marcus said. His voice was calm, but inside, his heart raced. The widow's face was pale. "We cannot win. There are too many." Marcus looked back at her, his gaze steady. "We don't have to win. We just have to survive." The girl whispered weakly, "Don't leave us." Marcus knelt beside her. He touched her hand gently. "I won't. Not ever." The sound of soldiers grew louder. Boots slammed against the earth. Metal clanged as orders were shouted. The master's voice echoed from a speaker above. "Marcus, you cannot hide. Hand over the child, and I may let you live. Resist, and you will all die." Marcus stood, his jaw tight. He shouted back, "You'll have to kill me first." The forest shook as the soldiers marched closer. Their shadows stretched long under the searchlights. The widow whispered, "What will you do?" Marcus raised his weapon. "What I must." The first wave of soldiers appeared between the trees. Marcus fired. Blue blasts cut through the night, striking armor and sending bodies crashing to the ground. But for every soldier that fell, more came forward. He fought fiercely, moving with the instinct of a man who had survived too many wars. His shots were fast, his strikes brutal, but his body was slowing. Pain burned in his muscles. His wounds screamed. The widow pulled her daughter deeper into the cave. Tears filled her eyes as she watched Marcus fight like a storm against an endless tide. The master's voice rang out again. "Fool, you cannot protect them. The child belongs to me." Marcus roared, "She belongs to no one." The soldiers rushed him. Claws of metal scraped across his chest. A blade slashed his arm. Marcus stumbled, but he swung his weapon like a club, knocking enemies aside. He fought with rage, with fire, with the strength of someone who had finally found something worth dying for. Then the girl woke fully. Her eyes glowed again, brighter than before. She saw Marcus bleeding, struggling, and her small voice cut through the chaos. "Family," she whispered. Light burst from her body, stronger than ever. The cave, filled with radiance, blinding and pure. Soldiers screamed as the light struck them. Weapons cracked, armor shattered. The forest itself glowed, the trees bending under the force. Marcus shielded his eyes, but he did not step back. He felt the heat of the power, the weight of it pressing on him. The widow cried out, "No, stop, my child. It will burn you." But the girl did not stop. Her glow grew until the soldiers fled, blinded and broken. The ships above trembled as their systems failed, smoke trailing from their engines. The master's voice vanished in static, and then silence. The girl collapsed into her mother's arms, her glow fading. Her chest rose and fell slowly. Her face was pale. The widow wept, holding her tightly. She cannot do this again. It will kill her. Marcus dropped to his knees, his weapon falling from his hands. His body ached. His blood stained the ground, but his eyes never left the girl. He reached out, brushing her small hand. "You saved us," he whispered. "But don't ever do that alone again." The girl's lips curved into a weak smile. "Because we are family." Marcus's heart broke and healed at the same time. He looked at the widow and she looked back at him. For the first time, she did not see him as a stranger. She saw him as something more. The forest grew quiet. The ships pulled away, damaged and retreating. For now, they were safe. The widow's voice trembled. "They will return. They will never stop." Marcus nodded. "Then let them come. We'll be ready." The widow studied him for a moment, then whispered, "Why do you keep risking yourself? You could leave. You owe us nothing." Marcus shook his head. "I owe you everything. I was a man with no purpose. A man who followed orders, no matter how dark. But when I was told to sell you, I found my purpose." The widow's eyes filled with tears. "And what purpose is that?" Marcus placed his hand gently on the girl's shoulder. "To protect, to fight, to be family." The widow closed her eyes, holding her daughter close. For the first time in years, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. Marcus stood slowly, his body trembling with pain but his spirit burning with strength. He looked out into the forest. The night was not safe. The galaxy was not safe. But he no longer felt alone. He had chosen them, and they had chosen him. The girl whispered again, her voice soft but clear. "Family." Marcus smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "Yes, family. From now until the stars fade." The fire crackled in the cave, the forest whispered. And though the galaxy would still hunt them, though the battles ahead would be harder than any before, Marcus knew one truth that no one could take away. He was no longer a man who followed cruel orders. He was no longer alone. He was part of something greater. He was part of a family, and that changed everything.